Hey there, fellow marketers, Professor Wolters here, and today we're going to continue our conversation on the 5 C's of pricing. And today we're going to focus on is the competition side of things and how our competition really will have an effect on us when we are determining our prices. Because what you have to realize is your competition can have a dramatic effect on your pricing. Because if you have a lot of competition, right, more competition means more fighting over stuff, which means lower profit margins, lower prices. That's going to have an influence. But if you have no competition, we can charge almost whatever we want. And there's a lot of things you really have to consider when you look at your pricing and how competition can really influence that. If you think 10, 15 years back when iTunes came out and they said, look, we're going to charge 99 cents per song. Well, didn't that affect pricing throughout the whole industry? I'm sure the Zune wanted to charge $1.29 or $1.49, and I'm sure the music companies would no, we want $5 a song. But it didn't matter because their competition, iTunes, was selling songs for 99 cents. And so everyone else had to kind of get in line. And if you start seeing that, look around when you look at McDonald's or Wendy's or Hardee's or Burger King or whatever, they all have a value meal, right? They all have the value dollar menu or the value menu, stuff like that. They all have things that are at pricing competitive around $1, right? They had that because McDonald's has that. Because McDonald's has that, Hardee's needs to do something that has a value price. And so you see these kind of things out there because really is your competition, their prices will influence you. But it's not just their prices. Your competition also can influence your prices by the competing products they put out there. Think about it. If they have different versions of your product or different levels of your product, for example, if you're looking at cars, the price of a Ferrari is not influencing the price of a Ford because they're not competing in the same market, right? But the thing is, if we have a product that's also in our market, okay, we have that idea of our price range. That's why when you go and you look at cars, the dealer will ask you, hey, what are you looking to spend? Because based on the price you're looking at, we have certain cars that fit into that criteria, right? Remember, we talked about knowing price ranges when you're looking at prices because that's how people shop. That's what we're talking about, how our competition there's certain products that fit in that price range. Your Honda Accord, your Toyota Camry, they all kind of fit in this the family sedan price range. Okay? And the thing is, the more competition we have, when Mitsubishi has one and Ford has one and things like that, that actually beats down the prices, right? So we have that. Because when you look at the differences between the Mercedes and the Fords and the Ferraris and things like that, what you see is your competition is actually offering other alternatives because they could have a high price or a mid price or a low price car. And so you might be competing at different levels. And so that's going to influence your pricing as well. Do we have a car that fits into each of these different price ranges? And the thing is, competition and competitive pricing are a lot stronger when there's very little differences between the products. That's why you really are what's the price for the Toyota versus the Honda? Because they're kind of the same car, right? If you look at it in terms of your gas stations, you look and say, well, what's the real difference between the gas? I mean, they both make my car go vroom, vroom, right? So when one gas station is $2.49 for a gallon and the other one's $2.48 for a gallon, I'm going to go to the $2.48 because we see that, look, price competition is so big, you can't justify a big price difference if you're selling basically the same thing. Hence why a lot of those value meals and value menus and value products on fast food restaurant menus are kind of the same. They have the cheeseburger, the hamburger, the chicken nugget thing, and the small fry. Yeah, it's all kind of the same thing because it all fits there because there's not a lot of differentiation there, so we can't really charge a price premium on there. So we're going to be much more competitive with our pricing, i.e. we're going to have lower prices, lower margins, stuff like that. And the thing is we look at our pricing with our competition, we have to realize, do we need to react to our competitors' pricing? Because you know what? If our competition lowers their prices and our customers don't leave, we don't really have to lower our prices. But if our competition lowers their prices and our customers leave, then yes, we do need to lower our prices. So you could end up with a price war. And most of the time, no companies really like that because, hey, we're all charging lower, lower, lower. So we're making less and less money and we're all going to kind of match our price kind of declines. And so sometimes you'll see some companies don't really lower their prices because they know, look, if I lower my price, my competitor's going to lower their price and then I'm going to lower it and we're just going to keep going down. And so I'll just keep it where it is. So you might have things like that go on. Because overall, when we look at at pricing and our competitors, we really have to look at a few things. We got to consider our competition. What are their reactions going to be for price changes? What are their products they have on offer? What's their product range, right? Their portfolio of products they have. How does that influence things? The costs that they have, right? The costs that our competitors have versus ours, that can influence it, because I can't compete if I make my shirts, in the US, I can't compete with low-cost labor in other countries because it costs so much less to make it there. So pricing is going to be very different. And so we have to think about these things when we are making our prices and looking at our competition and how they influence it. And the thing is when our competition cuts their prices or lower their prices, there's a few things you can do. If we see that we are being affected, or maybe we're not being affected, but there's things we need to consider. One thing you might want to look at is maybe we do reduce our price somewhat to kind of match with what they're doing. You can do that. But if you don't want to lower your prices, maybe what you can do is kind of raise your perceived value. Because if people feel like they're getting more out of your product than the competition, they won't necessarily relate the price out there. Because you think about it, when I get the normal cheeseburger, right? I go to Culver's for my burger, it costs more than the McDonald's burger. But the thing is, I don't mind, because I feel that Culver's burger, that Culver's Butterburger cheese, is so much better than the McDonald's burger. And so I don't have that price comparison because my perceived value of it is higher, so we're not going to have a price competition there. And the thing is, sometimes companies do things to make them perceived to be better, hence why they spend a lot of money on branding and marketing, or you can actually just make a better product. Culver's has a better beef, they have the better cuts, the kind of stuff like that, like, oh, this is so good. This does taste better. When you have that, when it's a higher quality product, then people are not going to price compare as much to products they consider kind of inferior to yours. And sometimes what companies do is actually, if they don't want to compete at the lower price with their normal brand, they might develop a lower cost brand, right? So if you look at what Toyota did, they actually created their Lexus brand because Lexus became the fancy price range. Because it's not always about lowering prices. You might think about it in terms of, how do I get into that higher price market? Well, if Toyota is considered a middle class car, are you going to pay $500,000 or $200,000 or $150,000 for a middle-class car? No, that's a high-end car. So they developed a new brand, a new product in order to fit into that market. So sometimes what companies do is they make a cheaper version of their product. Maybe a light version, or there's Armani, then there's Armani Express, right? You have the cheaper versions of stuff that we can fit into that market. It's not the same as our traditional brand, but it's us going into a lower price point or a higher price point with that new product or new brand, okay? So I hope this helps you understand some of the things and some of the ways that competition can influence your pricing. If you want to learn more about the 5 C's, we've got plenty of videos. We've got a video that goes over the basics of it, and then we got a video for each of the 5 C's to help you learn better how pricing is developed within a company. So whether it is, like I said, competition, or you're looking at your channel members, those retailers you work at, or you're looking at your costs that you have to think about, or you have to think about your customers, what do they think about pricing? But also we want to look at our company objectives, what we do and what we want to be seen as. All of those things can influence your pricing. So I wish you all the best, and I'll say bye from here, and I've got to go down on stage now and go teach. Bye.